Your relationship with money was decided before you ever earned a single dollar. Not by you, by the adults around you, the arguments you overheard, the silence that fell over the room whenever someone asked how much things cost. This is the wealth code. Stay with me until the end, because there is one specific pattern that wealthy people practice daily, a cognitive ritual most people would call irrational, that actually rewires how your brain processes financial decisions. You will not hear that anywhere else today. In 2013, researchers at Princeton University published a study in the journal Science that sent shockwaves through behavioral economics. They found that when low-income individuals were prompted to think about a financial hardship, a car repair bill, a medical cost, their IQ scores dropped by the equivalent of 13 points. 13 points. That is comparable to losing a full night of sleep. The poverty itself was not lowering intelligence. The cognitive burden of financial stress was consuming so much mental bandwidth that there was simply less brain available for everything else. The lead researcher, Sendhil Mullainathan, called it scarcity of mind. And here is what that means for you, even if you are not in poverty. Every unresolved emotional charge you carry around money is quietly draining your cognitive capacity right now. Most financial advice is built on a lie. The lie is that you are a rational actor, that if someone just shows you the right spreadsheet, the right interest rate, the right investment vehicle, you will make the optimal decision. But you will not. Nobody does. You are not a calculator that occasionally feels things. You are an emotional creature that occasionally calculates. And until you understand that distinction, genuinely understand it, not just nod at it, every financial strategy you try will eventually collapse under the weight of feelings you never knew you had. In the 1970s, psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky identified something they called loss aversion, the finding that losses feel roughly twice as painful as equivalent gains feel pleasurable. Losing $100 hurts approximately twice as much as gaining $100 feels good. This is not a quirk. This is hardwired. And it means that your brain is structurally biased toward protecting what you have over building what you want. But it goes deeper than that. Psychologist Brad Klontz, who has spent 2 decades studying what he calls money scripts, found that most adults are operating from financial beliefs formed before the age of 8. Before you could read a contract. Before you understood compound interest. Klontz identified 4 core money scripts. Money avoidance, the belief that money is bad or corrupting. Money worship, the belief that more money will finally fix everything. Money status, tying your self-worth directly to your net worth. And money vigilance, chronic anxiety and secrecy around finances. Here is the crucial part. None of these scripts are conscious. You do not wake up and choose to believe that wealthy people are greedy, or that you do not deserve financial success. The script runs silently, in the background, shaping every financial decision you make while you believe you are thinking clearly. And then there is shame. Research by social worker and researcher Brené Brown consistently shows that shame is the emotion most correlated with destructive behavior. Not guilt, shame. Guilt says I did something bad. Shame says I am bad. Around money, shame operates in both directions. The shame of not having enough, and the shame of having more than the people you grew up with. Both are real. Both are powerful. Both will sabotage you. Now let us talk about who profits from your emotional confusion around money. Because this is not accidental. The consumer credit industry, worth over $4 trillion in the United States alone, is architected around one psychological vulnerability, the gap between how you feel now and how you think you will feel later. Citibank, Chase, Capital One, These institutions employ teams of behavioral scientists whose explicit job is to exploit the disconnect between your emotional brain and your rational brain. The buy now, pay later industry, companies like Klarna and Afterpay, is specifically designed to remove the emotional pain of spending. Research published in the Journal of Consumer Research shows that paying with credit card, versus cash, reduces the psychological pain of a purchase by enough to increase spending by up to 100%. They are not selling you credit. They are selling you emotional anesthesia. And the advertising industry compounds this. Every luxury brand advertisement is not selling a product, it is selling an emotional identity. It is selling the feeling of being the kind of person who has arrived. Who matters. Who is safe. And it is targeting the exact shame and status anxiety that your childhood money scripts already installed. This entire system is calibrated to keep your financial emotions unexamined, because examined emotions make for much worse consumers. Retention peak. But here is the part that will actually change how you see money. Most people believe that emotional financial decisions are the enemy of wealth. That the goal is to become less emotional, more robotic, more logical, more detached. That is exactly backwards. The research of Dr. Antonio Damasio at the University of Southern California found that patients with damage to the emotional centers of the brain, people who literally could not feel emotions, became catastrophically bad at making financial decisions. Not better. Catastrophically worse. Without emotion, they could not assign value. They could not prioritize. They would endlessly weigh options without ever being able to choose. Damasio called it the somatic marker hypothesis. Emotion is not the enemy of good decisions, it is the navigational system that makes decisions possible. The wealthy people I have studied do not suppress their financial emotions. They develop what psychologists call emotional granularity, the ability to identify exactly which emotion is present, at exactly what intensity, and what that emotion is actually responding to. They feel the anxiety. They name it precisely. And then they ask, is this anxiety responding to real data, or is it echoing a 9-year-old who once overheard a frightening conversation about rent? That question, that single moment of emotional forensics, is worth more than any investment tip you will ever receive. Wealthy people, and I mean genuinely wealth-building people, not people who simply earn a lot, practice something I call financial emotional auditing. Let me be precise about what that looks like. First, they create separation between a financial trigger and a financial response. Not by suppressing the feeling, but by building a deliberate pause. Warren Buffett famously has a rule of not acting on any investment impulse for at least 24 hours. The pause is not about analysis. It is about letting the emotional charge discharge so the decision is actually theirs. Second, they maintain what psychologist Carol Dweck would recognize as a growth orientation toward financial mistakes. Where most people experience financial failure as identity confirmation, I am bad with money, wealth-building people treat the same event as data. The story they tell about the loss determines whether it becomes a lesson or a wound. Third, and this is the one that surprises people, high-net-worth individuals studied by Thomas Stanley and William Danko and The Millionaire Next Door consistently reported a very low correlation between their income and their self-worth. They had deliberately decoupled status from money. This meant they could make unsexy, unglamorous financial decisions, drive older cars, live in modest homes, without those decisions threatening their identity. When money is not your identity, you can actually manage it clearly. 1. Write your earliest money memory, in detail. Not a summary. The specific scene. How old you were. What was said. How the adults in the room looked. What you concluded about money in that moment. Klontz's research shows that this single exercise surfaces the money script that has been running your financial life. You cannot reprogram a script you cannot see. 2. Name the emotion before you make any financial decision above $100. Not just bad or stressed, use precise language. Is it fear? Shame? Scarcity? Excitement? Avoidance? Research by UCLA psychologist Matthew Lieberman shows that labeling an emotion with precision, what he calls affect labeling, measurably reduces its neurological intensity. Naming it literally calms the amygdala. 3. Identify your financial shame flashpoints, the specific money topics that make you go quiet, change the subject, or feel a flush of heat in your chest. Salaries. Debt. Inheritance. What people think of your home. These shame flashpoints are the exact locations where your financial blind spots live. Where the emotions are loudest, the decisions are most distorted. 4. Separate your net worth from your self-worth, actively and repeatedly. Write this sentence and mean it: my bank balance is a score in a game I am learning to play. It is not a verdict on my worth as a human being. This reframe is not affirmation fluff. It is the psychological foundation that allows you to look at your finances honestly, without the ego protection that keeps most people financially blind. You will never out-strategize an emotional wound, you have to heal it. Every financial decision you have ever made was made by a person carrying a history, a childhood, a set of conclusions, a set of feelings that nobody ever gave you the language to examine. The wealthiest shift you can make is not a portfolio reallocation. It is the decision to become fluent in your own financial emotions, to stop letting feelings you cannot name make decisions you cannot explain. If this shifted something for you, subscribe, because tomorrow we go even deeper. Next, watch our video on how the financial industry uses status psychology to keep middle-income earners permanently asset poor. It connects everything you heard today to the specific products being sold to you right now. This is the Wealth Code.